Welcome, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us on the Flourishing Life Podcast, where we will be discussing what we see on the daily. We're Jackie and Tad from Flourish Medical and Wellness in Savage, Minnesota, where listening to our patients is the priority. Our foundational medicine clinic bridges the gap between traditional and functional medicine. We are pattern recognition specialists that focus on individualized patient care and health optimization. With a combined 30 years of medical experience, our goal is to provide insights that help you take control of your health. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Flourish Medical Wellness and on our website, flourishmedicalwellness.com, to stay up to date with what's happening at the clinic. The following content is the opinion of Jackie and Tad Tewes and is not intended to diagnose or treat any medical conditions. Be sure to speak to your healthcare provider for your unique health needs. Welcome back, everyone, to the Flourishing Life Podcast. Jackie and Tad here from Flourish Medical and Wellness. We're listening to you. Our patients is our priority and practicing a team approach to foundational wellness for long-term healing. We are back, another episode of what we see on the daily here in the clinic. So this is patient case studies. It might be things that we're hearing a lot from patients, just clarification around different things that we're hearing.
Yeah.
And we have Men's Health Month coming up here in June. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and also some recap from ECO. So we were speakers at ECO this year, which is one of the main conferences that we go to really stay up to date and well educated in the foundational medicine world. And we had the privilege of speaking this year.
Yeah, it was an awesome experience. And it was fun to see behind the scenes there too of what it means to be a speaker in a bigger environment like that at a big conference and be able to speak to like-minded, holistic longevity experts and say, okay, here's what we do. And then also pick up pearls from a lot of different speakers who are really experts in their particular niche.
The thing I love about ECO, and literally from the first moment I was at ECO 4 or 5 years ago, is that people on the stage do not shy away from acknowledging our creator.
Yeah.
Like so many of the speakers acknowledge who created us, why we're here, and they love on their patients like Jesus loves people. Like it's so cool.
Yeah. And that is so central to what we do here too. I mean, you know that. And if we believe, and we have that core belief that we are wonderfully made and the human body has the ability to heal itself and to improve function and to even turn back the hands of time with regard to aging and longevity, it's amazing what we can do as long as we guide in that direction. But if we have the premise that we start on that, hey, you live in America, your diet is garbage, your body is messed up, it's really hard for people to stay motivated and to really make those lifestyle changes, make those changes in terms of utilizing supplements that they need, changing their outlook as well for mental health and even health anxiety. So understanding the body is an incredible thing when we treat it the right way, and it has the ability to make huge gains even in people in their 60s and beyond.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll get into that a little bit as well. Do you want to start with what you've been hearing the last month and anything to kind of let our audience know about?
You know, we've been returning back to fundamentals a lot in clinic, especially with the changes of seasons. So with the weather getting nicer, people fortunately are able to get outside more. And so we've been talking about how do we harness the change of seasons when it comes to exercise habits. And this is something where we get forced here in the upper Midwest to be inside and work out inside in the winter unless you like to snowmobile or ski or cross-country ski or those things. But now is that time when people can get back into that summer groove with things like jogging, running, even running hills or those outdoor activities like hiking that they just weren't able to do a few months ago. So having that seasonal variation keeps things fresh, which is so nice. I mean, we sometimes, if we're doing the same exercise habits week over week, it can get a little bit stale. So just encouraging people and putting a plan together in clinic for success, because if we really put that format together, they're much more likely to stick with it and have success, especially if it's things they enjoy.
Yeah. The other thing I love about that is, it's free, right? Like you can do things, walking hills, running, walking, like you can do things that are free to keep your body healthy, especially here, more so here in the summer. Yeah. The other thing I think we often forget is the importance of that first morning sun.
Yeah.
And so really taking that time for your nervous system, which we talked a lot about at ECO as well, but taking that time morning, Get outside, no sunglasses, let those photoreceptors be activated in the eyes. It's going to help your body convert vitamin D and use it better. So it's just so important. Get outside, have your coffee on the deck or ground, even better. Put your feet in the ground and have your coffee and absorb vitamin D.
Yeah. The grounding is a big thing for me too. And that's neighbors. If you're listening, you guys probably think I'm absolutely crazy, but that's something Max and I have been doing. So I'll take, our mini schnauzer outside, my shoes and socks are off. We're walking around the yard, just feeling the ground against my skin, against my feet, having those electrical changes occurring in the body. And this used to be woo-woo stuff, 10 years ago, because they didn't have the studies. It was something where people would say grounding, and you'd kind of get this odd look like this is the craziest thing I've ever heard of. But now we actually see how it changes some of the electricity within our body and how it's good for us, as long as we're doing it correctly, as long as we've got skin contact onto ground.
Yeah, so the ground is negatively charged, and we tend to carry a more positive charge, especially if we have kind of that high stress, high anxiety, and just blue light and all the things that we're, EMFs, all these things increase that positive charge that we carry. And so literally just that standing on the ground, your body can absorb those negative charges and balance out better. I'm so proud of you that you've come to the dark side and do these things now.
Well, every parent of a teenager, you know who you are, should be grounding.
100%.
because the opposite things for stress management are not healthy for you. So let's do the positive things.
Yeah. For sure. All right. So exercise, what else you got?
Yeah. Other than that, no, I was going to talk about morning sunlight as well, especially this time of year. We get those nice cool mornings, except for this week. It's been a little bit hot, but get that morning sunlight, get that sun, especially as it's just coming up. That's going to be the best time of the day. Beyond that, I think one of the most positive things or the most productive things that people can do this time of year with the change of season is put a new plan together. Okay, you have new opportunities to be outside. You have new opportunities to format your week, not only with exercise habits, but sleep habits, and then also your eating habits too. This time when we have light and with these longer days, just people need to have a plan. And if you set that up now, it'll help you make much more progress through the summer and into the fall.
I think one thing we see a lot, and we were probably prone to this as well, and we need to really pay attention, is this, like we tend to eat later in the summer, which isn't necessarily a good thing. You need to make sure you're not eating too close to bedtime, even though it's lighter later. So if we're eating too close to bed, our body has to process that. It has to release insulin to take care of that sugar, which then means it's not releasing melatonin, which means we're not sleeping as well, which means we are not detoxing as well. Melatonin is one of our most potent antioxidants. It's not just sleep, it's getting rid of toxins. And of course, body healing and muscle growth. So if you're putting in the workouts, but then you're not getting sleep or you're eating too late before bed, your body can't build muscle. Yeah. So that's I think, thing to just be aware of. Really try hard to keep that meal earlier in the evening, and at least 2 hours would be kind of the minimum of eating before bed.
Yeah. Absolutely. What have you been seeing recently?
We've talked about this before, and we've talked a lot about optimal, normal, what the lab ranges actually mean when labs are being checked. And so I just wanted to show this because this was a lab that I had gotten back here this last month. And you probably can't see it very well, but there's this highlighted part here, and it says, note, reference interval has changed. So I'm going to explain this in a little different way. When we have those reference intervals on the paper, or I think as medical practitioners have mistakenly told people that they're normal, and then that gets interpreted as I'm healthy. The more accurate way to describe that is to say this is where the average American falls.
Yes.
Healthy or not.
A population comparison.
So it's not saying you're healthy. It's saying you fall in line with 95% of people who are healthy and who are not healthy. So when we think about that, that means the ranges change. So what we see, like blood sugar, for example, okay, that range has changed where it's gotten higher. So that doesn't mean that a higher blood sugar is healthy. That's not what that means. that means we as a nation are getting sicker and our sugars are running higher. And so now there's a new normal that still makes us look healthy.
Yeah.
Right? So I think people really need to wrap their brains around that, because we have to move away from this, oh, you're normal on the paper, so normal must mean healthy. No, normal, or that range, means you fall in line with everyone else. And unfortunately, we're not a very healthy country. We're a really sick country. And so really, we just keep moving the ranges to make us look normal when we're actually just getting sicker.
Well, and words matter too. What you said there is really important. So there's a range typically on the right side of the page, and it is always called a reference range or reference interval. So when you break that down, it's just referring you to a large group of people. That's what it's doing. Yeah. So it's not, and what we as people do, we associate things, we look at a range and we say, okay, this must be the healthy range. And a lot of people do that subconsciously. And so just informing people to say, hey, this is just comparing you to the population. And when we dive one step deeper into those tests, we can get a really good idea of this with like TSH, or thyroid stimulating hormone, that hormone the brain sends to the thyroid telling it to make hormones. The reference range goes from about 0.45 up to 4.5, a 10-fold increase. So if we were to say this is the healthy range, what we would be saying is somebody who makes 9 times more of that hormone has the same health as somebody who makes 9 times less. I mean, it doesn't even make sense conceptually.
For sure. But unfortunately, that's not what people are told. And hopefully this is getting out there more. Hopefully even medical providers are starting to understand. I didn't know that. I did not know that. They never trained me on that in school. So that's something I've learned over time. So hopefully we'll see that change. But
and one thing I would encourage anyone listening. So if you have a provider and you are going through labs with that provider and they're going through a lab test, ask the question, what does this mean? Okay, if a TSH is high, what does that mean? It means that the brain is acting like a computer and it's saying, I need to send a bigger signal to try and make thyroid hormones be produced. Or what does it mean if part of that whole feedback loop hormonally is elevated or decreased? So ask those questions, and your provider should be able to explain that very simply.
Or more importantly, ask, well, what is normal? If your provider is just telling you normal, what does that mean? Does that mean I'm healthy? Or does that mean, ask that question. What does that mean? Because that's going to give you a very good window into understanding how your provider understands labs and therefore how they're going to make recommendations for you. So a normal vitamin D of 30 is not near enough for your cells and for all of the functions that vitamin D is doing in your body, but it can look normal. Yeah. So if your provider is treating you based on normal and they don't understand what normal is, they don't understand that that's not healthy, it's average, right? Yeah. Then you're going to be getting average care. Well, and unfortunately.
And that's the hard part is like with a vitamin D of 30 will fall typically within a reference range. It is the perfect level for seasonal depression in December.
For sure.
Outstanding from a vitamin D perspective.
And we see higher rates of cancer with low vitamin D. There's so many things that are connected to that. And
immune function.
Ask, what does that mean? Does it mean I'm healthy?
Yep.
Does it mean I'm average? Does it mean I'm in line with all the sick people?
Yeah. And I don't want to get too far down in this too, but optimal ranges, those should change as we age. Yeah. Our body, it doesn't want the same exact levels of certain things at age 60 compared to age 30. And providers need to understand that, especially if we're trying to optimize longevity and how a person ages and decrease that risk for chronic disease.
For sure. Not everything, but some things.
Some things.
And what we've learned, I think, over time is that, at least me personally, you can chime in on this too, but I was very, very much trained on using these labs to make my diagnosis. Here's your test, here's your diagnosis, end of story. And the longer I practice medicine, it really is an art, and it really is, this is just a piece, a small piece of the picture of what I'm helping this patient with. Yeah. If we're putting all of our all of our eggs in the lab basket, we're missing so much. Yeah. So yes, labs are important. It gives us a window on the inside of what's happening, but we have to move away from treating that patient just based on the labs. And every single patient is different. So when they age, their lab should look different.
Yeah.
But we can, like, the most important things need to be what their body's telling us and what their symptoms are telling us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's something too. You and I both know when we're training providers, who are you treating? Are you treating a person or are you treating this piece of paper? Because this piece of paper isn't going to tell you how it's doing.
It's so interesting though. It's hard. That's one thing I've noticed as we train providers. It's so ingrained in them who have gone through the traditional, training in medicine to treat the paper. And so it's like, oh, but their numbers weren't. I'm like, no. Hold on.
Back up.
What is the patient telling you? Yeah. And then let's look at the numbers. Again, they're helpful, right? Like, I can tell you when I go into a room and do an annual review, if someone's A1C is 5.6 and their LDL shot up, and I'm like, okay, I have an idea of what's been going on here, but let's see what the patient says.
Yeah.
So they're definitely helpful and they can help us understand, but it is not like that is it. It's not all labs.
Yeah. Well, and if we as providers, and this is something too, if you're listening in, your provider should be able to use lab work as confirmation or confirmatory. When you and I do an initial consult and we are asking all the questions and we're digging into what that person has had as far as a health journey, their past medical history, strengths, weaknesses, things that have worked in the past, we should have a reasonable idea of what those labs are going to look like. And then if based on all of that information, labs look way off, then it's our job to figure out why.
For sure.
But they should really be confirmation, and they are 90+% of the time as long as you do the legwork on the front end. The other thing, I'm going to get on my soapbox. And I'm not going to say I'm sorry because I'm not sorry. But having people be guided to diagnostics and lab work in an excessive way can be super damaging. People can fixate on this. They can get health anxiety. They can get test anxiety. I just saw it this last week with a guy. And it's like, yes, labs are good to have those touch points. It is good to have things like body composition scans as well. But if we overly fixate on those and then we pass that on to the people that we're caring for, it can be really destructive and dysfunctional. It just is not, and it can suck the joy out of life.
And we can see over-testing in certain areas of medicine where we're spending, the patients are spending ridiculous amounts of money for tests that we really don't need. Yeah. And so I think that's where, God has really shown us a different way of practicing medicine. Like, it's very different than how we were trained. It's very different than functional medicine. It's very different than traditional medicine. It's really this space in between. And it's really cool kind of how he's trained us and said, hey, here's the blueprint I want you to have and how I want you to approach care. Like, it is so cool to be able to do that and to see the massive changes that we see in patients. Yeah. And so we're using a little bit of each world. Like, yes, some testing is important. In functional world, sometimes we over test and we spend a lot of money that we don't need to. So let's leave, like, we don't necessarily want to go there. Like, it's this middle ground that we have found to be really successful for people.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is just being good stewards for the people that we care for, saying, okay, if we're ordering these tests, why? I mean, because just ordering tests, I mean, you're wasting somebody else's money if there's not a justification for what we're looking for or what we need to confirm too.
For sure. All right. I had a woman in my office and she was distraught. I feel like I get this like at least once a week. So crazy. But I wanted to bring this up because obviously it's still happening out there. So I wrote these down exactly what she had said. She had said that she saw a gynecologist who then had kind of a plan. She ended up leaving or retiring or something. And so then she was referred to another gynecologist who told her, she was 58, exact words, you never should have been put on hormones at your age. At 58. Okay. She said, you must absolutely stop any sort of hormones at age 60. And no woman needs testosterone. Okay. So those were the three. I was like, Okay. And this goes back to what we talked about in ECO. Like only 2% of medical school curricula covers any sort of menopause, perimenopause, HRT.
Yeah.
70% of OBGYN residents, so our hormone specialists, aren't being trained on this. So it's not necessarily their fault, but it's so confusing for our patients. Like this is very clear. No woman needs testosterone is a very blanket statement, and our body is made with testosterone. In fact, we make more testosterone as women than we do estrogen. We absolutely need testosterone. There is a huge study, the Medicare study. We probably talked about this before. Over 10 million women in this study that they looked at, and the women who remained on hormones after the age of 65 had much lower heart disease, cancer, lung cancer, colon cancer, AFib, like across the board, healthier. And so we have to stop saying these things to women that are confusing and that are scaring them and are really, unfortunately, impacting their health in a really bad way. It's really important, and you need to understand it is so important that if we are using hormone replacement therapy, there's a window when it's best to start it. And if it's past 10 years past menopause, that's when we can actually get into trouble. So it's absolutely important, and it absolutely matters when we're starting that, and the sooner the better.
Yeah, and the nice part is we have more recent studies here, and this is where, when we think back to the WHI study that came out and then concluded in the early 2000s, it did a lot of damage. And some of the misconceptions as far as hormones still remain to this day, 25 years later, in practice, especially with providers who maybe are not staying as up to date on newer studies. And I'm, there are great providers, and there are providers who don't really stay up to date on newer studies in all areas of medicine. And it's not just with hormone care, but that's where the beauty of this is we now have the study results over the last 5 to 10 years to say, what actually is going on? How can we promote long-term women's health and longevity and giving all of those organ systems the fuel that they need in the hormone world? I mean, this isn't just about physical function and sexual function in the joints and things like that. This is about almost every organ system in the entire body needing estrogen and testosterone because it has receptors for them.
And, it's not fair to expect our patients to know all this. Like, they shouldn't have to have the information to then tell the provider. But what they can do is ask.
Yeah.
Like, well, can you tell me more about that? What I'm hearing is that there are more up-to-date studies on this that are showing things differently. Just ask the question. Yeah. I think that's really important, because even if it's not for you, if they're telling you that, they're telling other women that.
Well, and
so maybe that inspires them to dive into that a little bit more, to educate themselves a little bit more.
Yeah. Blanket statements, like you had said, those can be difficult, and we really try and avoid those. I mean, I changed my tune a little bit on this over time, but I mean, if I said all alcohol is bad, you can definitely make a case for that. If I had a woman or man come in and say, I only drink when I make steak, I like having a nice glass of red wine in my hand while I'm cooking a nice dinner, there is joy in life to things like that. Where if I just say, no, you got to cut out all alcohol, it's just, you kind of have to see the forest through the trees sometimes. For
sure. And that's one of the biggest things I tell patients. If you're meeting with a provider and they are all things are this or all things are this, that's almost never how it actually is in medicine. There's gray, and it depends on the person. Yeah. So if you're hearing that from a provider, it's always like one end of the spectrum or the other. You might want to find somebody else.
Well, and I think that as we move into medicine 3.0 here, what providers can do if they're willing to make a commitment to this is change the way that they look at people. And I think this is the most valuable thing. We all have to know the information, the facts of how the body works, the studies. Okay, that's the X's and O's of medicine. But when we think about having great empathy for those individuals sitting across from us, it's putting ourselves in their shoes and saying, how can I coach and empower and motivate So that way we can put all these pieces together so this person lives a very happy, joy-filled, purpose-filled life where their body supports everything that they want to do. And then also think about the future. How can we make sure that you can get up off the ground with your grandkids? And how can we make sure that you can hike in your 70s like you want to? Stuff like that. That's the next step, because it's not just numbers and it's not just X's and O's. These are people with priorities and their own individual needs.
All right, so let's switch gears a little bit, talk about eco. Any big takeaways or anything you wanted to share?
Eco is a lot of fun. Boise is a cool spot and great group of providers, great group that talked a lot also about brain health and cognitive health as we age. So that was a huge takeaway, and that has been a hot topic, especially over the last year or two. But continuing to support brain health as people age, and also understanding the different needs as we age for brain health is really an area where there's going to be more and more and more research, especially with dementia rates in this country.
Yeah, that is an area that I'm excited about, peptide use.
Yeah.
So, our opinion and our stance on peptides is that they can help kind of that 5 to 10%, but they are not foundational. Like, you have to have a healthy foundation for it to actually work. And so they can be a really great tool, but they're not magic. They're not like it's going to fix everything. But I am really, I think the cognitive benefits of that can be very impactful.
Yeah. The feedback that we received after speaking in terms of how to weave in high-level hormonal care with foundational medicine or supporting the terrain and the way the body functions as it ages. That was awesome. That was awesome to kind of be accepted with open arms there.
Yeah. I think one of my big takeaways, I have two main ones that I wanted to chat about. One, there was a lot of speakers who spoke around stress, nervous system activation, this constant fight or flight that we're in, and how it impacts so many systems. Our hormones, our metabolic health, our cognitive function, our emotional health, our ability to heal, right? Like, we can't even get rid of toxins. We can't detox you if you're in fight or flight. And fight or flight is not necessarily bad. It's the body saying, hey, I'm trying to protect you. Yeah. And so we need to figure out what it's running from, and we need to fix the stressor. So I think that was really good reminder. And I think it's just so much more common because we live in this environment that's constantly go, go, go.
Yeah. Well, and people sometimes unknowingly are getting fed things that are pushing them into more of that sympathetic activation. So sympathetic and parasympathetic are the two areas of the nervous system, or you think of two ways the nervous system functions. Parasympathetic being more rest and digest, or those basal functions. Sympathetic, the fight or flight or higher stress response. So things like consistently watching cable news networks, consistently having things on your social media feed that are anxiety provoking. Those put people into more of a sympathetic tone.
For sure. And the impact on metabolic health and glucose. So when stress is super high, we're going to have higher blood sugar, which is going to lead me to my product of the month here. So I'm going to chat about it really quick. CGMs, like, so excited about this. I'm so glad we have them here. It's something I recommend a lot of times for patients. So this can help you. You just wear it on the back of your arm. It's going to give you a continuous reading. And I find this so helpful, not only for patients to understand what foods they're super sensitive to and how we need to tweak their protein amount compared to their carb amount, or we need to change their activity based on what their sugars are doing. Like, there's just so much information we can get from this. But it also tells us in those patients where they have higher blood sugars, they're more in that prediabetes range, and they shouldn't be. Like, they eat pretty well, they're not overweight. We're like, what is going on? That can point it back to some of that stress, that cortisol activation that we're seeing, which is hijacking your blood sugar. So CGMs, we carry them now at the clinic. Super excited about this. Let us know if you have questions. There's literally a wealth of information that these provide. So I love them.
Yeah. Thank you for that reminder. Sometimes I forget about those after talking about all the other things. All right.
One other thing before we move into kind of the men's health stuff, I wanted to just do a couple slides here. One of the presenters talked about kind of the different food supply in our country and what that looks like. So I just want to read through a couple really quick things. There are 85 pesticides approved for outdoor agriculture applications in the U.S. that are banned in Europe, Brazil, and China. 85 that we allow that other places do not.
That speaks to the painful side of capitalism.
So of the pesticides used in the U.S., 322 million pounds were of pesticides banned in Europe. 26 million pounds were of pesticides banned in Brazil, and 40 million pounds were of pesticides banned in China. So we're literally spraying our people, basically our people and our food, with all these chemicals that other countries have said, hey, this has a significant negative health impact for you. We're banning it. We're not even allowing them to use it.
Yeah, and it's important for people to know this too, because these are statistics that are not necessarily widely circulated. And a lot of that is there's huge producers of glyphosate and atrazine that don't necessarily want people to know that these are not used worldwide.
Yeah, so atrazine we know has a significant ability to disrupt our endocrine system, actually turn male frogs into female frogs that can reproduce. So significant hormonal disruption. And not only is it sprayed in the air and the food, it gets into our groundwater and we're drinking it. And I see this on toxin tests all the time. Yeah. But specifically with atrazine, there was 65 to 85 million pounds sprayed each year, primarily on corn, even though it's banned in more than 40 other countries. It's also used on lawns, school grounds, golf courses, where children are playing, and we wonder why we have this huge decline in hormonal health. Yeah. So that's a big one.
It is. And that's where some of the simplest things, just trying to buy organic produce, can be really important. And it's not that organic produce tastes better or it's this magical thing. We're just trying to stay away from the pesticides and stay away from the herbicides that a lot of these, normal produce products are sprayed with, and just decreasing exposure.
Yeah. All right. You want to wrap us up with some great kind of men's health tips and what you've seen and what your favorite products are for the month?
Oh, sure. So biggest thing when we are looking into men's health is, guys, if I could give you one piece of advice, set goals for the summer. Set seasonal goals for this time of year and really work to architect life. And we've been doing this a lot in clinic lately, at least I have. And what I see is when guys set up a system that works for them, doing things that they enjoy exercise-wise, a dietary system that they know their body responds well to, and that framework is in place, it's awesome what can be accomplished in 3 to 5 months here moving forward. But you have to take the time on the front end to do that. And that's an evolving conversation. Sometimes we'll start off going down this path and we'll need to change something or we'll need to pivot because it's not working how we thought it would.
Or the body changes.
Yeah.
And we need to pivot with that.
Yeah. I mean, that's the big thing. And it sounds overly simple, but time and time again, I see guys increase their energy, improve their sleep, better their body composition and their control of blood sugars all together if we're doing it the right way. And we're really looking at metabolic health with that. That's the goal. So a couple common supplements that I use here, and this is more surrounding testosterone, especially in younger guys. So we do some testosterone replacement therapy here, and there definitely is a important place for that in women and men. But two supplements that I use commonly together are Free T and Advanced Testosterone Support. These work differently, both with the native production of testosterone within the body, as well as making it as bioavailable as possible, which is more that Free T supplement that uses something called Tonkat Ali, and what that does is helps to free up and maximize bioavailability of testosterone.
And I think you've seen some pretty good results with those, right? As far as numbers, like testosterone levels improving on paper.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and then, correlating that to changes in energy, sleep, body composition, those things that testosterone should provide.
And I think the other is true too. Like if we just supplement is not going to help. Like you can't out supplement a bad lifestyle. So it's a combination of how are we supporting our hormones as well as working out, building muscle, sleeping, managing stress, limiting alcohol. Like those are probably some of the big hitters when it comes to hormone optimization and healthy hormone production.
Absolutely.
All right. Any final words?
No, everybody start enjoying this beautiful weather. Get your sunshine, get your vitamin D, and just remember, life is not supposed to be lived indoors. Like if you get stuck on a beautiful Friday recording a podcast.
All right. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We will see you next month. Thanks for listening to the Flourishing Life Podcast. You can watch the full video version of this podcast inside the Spotify app or on our YouTube channel. If you liked this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. And we would love it if you would share this episode with a friend and follow us on socials, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook, or on our website at flourishmedicalwellness.com. Chat soon, everyone. The information on this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not intended to replace medical advice or to be a substitute for professional medical diagnosis or treatment.